and I up with the old 308 and bang, and the first one drops, and bang, the second one drops, and it gets up, and I bang, it goes down again, and I pull, and I fire the next two shots at this one running away, and I go running up, and I'm looking, and okay, the one's dead, the other one's dead. I go check the tracks of the other one. No, I didn't. I don't know. Maybe I did. 16 years old. The adrenaline is just pumping.
Welcome to the Wild Dispatch.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Wild Dispatch. I'm Robin and I'm back with more skills and stories from the wild. This broadcast is coming to you live from a mossy mound somewhere in Northern California, Mendocino County. It is the last weekend of turkey season. Thought that I would get out here and try and seal the deal. Unfortunately, no birds spotted yet. I'm probably not going to say any more talking this loudly in the bush either. But yeah, nice to get out here. I've already come across a flurry of black chanterelles, or trumpets, I guess they're also called. I got a nice little haul here. Looking forward to trying to find some more. They are so delicious in like a scrambled egg breakfast. So yeah, some motivation there. Today's episode, we have an amazing guest. I think I'm going to have to correct this if it's wrong, but I think from season 10 of Alone, the Alone show, Wyatt Black was an amazing contestant. He lasted a very long time out in the boonies, tons of charm. The guy is such a character. So I knew I had to try and get him on the show. He is also just about to launch a new book, which goes by the title Bleat and Blurred, which is a fantastic title and so appropriate for Wyatt, I've got to say. His book is coming out this week. I can't remember exactly which day, but be sure to go to wyattblack.com and subscribe there, and you'll get all the information about when it's coming out and how you can get it. The other way is also keep an eye on the publisher, which is Codebreaker. I think you can find them online, Instagram, if you just search Codebreaker, Wyatt Black. I'm sure the information will come up there. So we talk about the book, lots of revelations about his experience in Alone, the healing journey that he went through, actually being out there in the bush for so long on his own, and a bunch of other stuff too. There's some fantastic hunting stories from his childhood growing up, in Canada. It's some gold in there. So a huge thank you again to Wyatt for jumping on the podcast. And yeah, we're going to jump into that episode any second now. But if you are new to the podcast, then it'll be fantastic if you can give us a follow or a subscribe, depending on where you're listening. If you are a returning guest and you're enjoying the kind of content that we're making, then it would be fantastic if you could share this with a friend. I think that is the most effective way of getting this podcast out to as many ears and eyes, if you're watching on YouTube, as possible. That way, then the word spreads and the profile of this podcast grows, and it makes it even easier for me to get great guests on here like Wyatt. I think that's quite enough waffling for now. I'm going to get back to the boonies, mushrooms or turkeys incoming. Here's Wyatt now. So I feel like we're about to launch. Well, Wyatt, welcome to the podcast, man. I'm glad that we managed to get those few technical hiccups sorted out. I was starting to feel afraid that we might have to reschedule.
Everything starts off with a little complication. That just makes it a little bit more rewarding. That's all.
Yeah, exactly. It's better if you work for it, I guess. So you just said that the snow's been falling where you are. Where are you right now?
I'm in Bracebridge, Ontario. They call it the Muskokas. Great spot to live. Lots of hunting, lots of fishing. Going to start some beaver trapping tomorrow. I shouldn't be doing it today, but, one of those things. kind of looking forward to it. I'm actually working with one of the provincial parks and cottage associations to I'm on a management program with the beavers. They've been flooding out the lake and what have you around. So not being trapped over the last, God knows how many years. They got quite heavy a population. Last year I took 24 in no time, and I only took one adolescent. So we couldn't get a definite weigh on. My dad had the hand scale, and he's getting low. He's almost 80. He'll be 80 in February. He's holding it on the hand scale and trying to hold it out, and it was somewhere between 75 and 80 pounds. So it was a big old beaver. Yeah.
Wow, that is big, man. I didn't realize they get that big. So do you use the hides as well and the meat?
Yeah, so that's kind of part of the thing with the park was they wanted me to start chopping them last summer, and I said, well, why don't we wait till the season? They've already put their dams in place. We're not going to change anything until fall anyway. So I'd rather take them when their hides are worth something and what have you. So we use the hides and we use the casters and what have you. They all get sold up at the Choppers Convention in North Bay here. We work with the fur harvesters of Ontario. And January 9th, I'm kind of looking forward to it. I'm going up there with Codebreaker Incorporated. They're the publishers of my book. And we're going to put a table up there and tell a bunch of lies with the choppers and sign a few books.
That sounds like great fun, man. So what is your book titled then? And it's coming out soon, right?
Yeah, we haven't really 100% confirmed the title. We're still working. I put a little, Bleeped and Blurred seems to be my favorite, which is kind of, that's what I told them on Alone. I said, your editors will have a lot. I swear a lot, and I like to run around naked. So they said, don't worry, we'll bleep and blur everything we need. So it's kind of appropriate to the title of my book, but there's been lots of great titles and lots of people giving me. I put a thing out where I'm going to give a free signed copy to the best title, and so far that's kind of the one I'm liking.
It's got a real ring to it, I've got to say, and it feels perfect for you as well.
Yeah, it suits the character that it's about, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's right, man. So this sounds very lofty, but I've kind of had a job as a writer on and off for the past 10 or so years, but I've never written a book, and I've always been curious about the process. And we're not getting into the wilderness stuff right here, right now, but just how did you find it? Like, was it hard to get going, keep momentum?
No, not really. I worked with Brian and Stephanie Aspinall from Codebreakers, and they waited kind of a couple of years. Brian, when he watched our season of Alone, he said, that's going to be the author of my next book. And he gave me time to see if I was going to put one out by myself. And I'm just, I'd rather go hunting and fishing and traipsing through the woods and sit down and try and write a book. So he contacted me just less than 2 months ago, asked me if I'd be interested. We did up a contract, and the book's virtually done. We're just doing the final editing now. It was such an easy process, kind of like doing this podcast with you. I never shut up, so it's easy just to talk. And he was able to kind of draw the stories out about what he wanted to put in the book and the message I wanted to deliver. A lot of it's got to do with like mental health and self-healing, and really taking a look at yourself rather than the faults of others, and understanding the role we play in our own mental illness and our own torments and tortures.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I mean, I think that's something that everyone could probably relate to. It's easy to point the finger, especially I know when I was younger, it's easy to blame the way that you're feeling or perceiving the world on everything around you. But I guess gradually over time, or maybe certain things need to happen for you to realize that, oh, actually, maybe this is something more about what's going on in my own head.
There's so much truth to that. And, that was one of the blessings I got from Alone, was to be able to actually have the time to sit and self-reflect. And without the influence of drugs and alcohol and all the other things that I used as crutches over the years. And really, I'm not a guy to go sit on a couch, that's for sure, and talk to shrinks and therapists. So being out there and listening to the truths in my own brain, I know now that's why a lot of people tap, because it's a hard thing to face sometimes. They tend to pick people that have had a little bit of tragedy and obstacles in their life that have gave them a unique characteristic, and that's kind of what makes the show so special. Is by the time the season's done, you almost feel like everybody that's been on the season. That's when I've watched it since the first episode, and it was just one of those shows like everyone else. I fell in love with it, and I look forward to it every year. And it's funny. You listen to the negative comments and all about people and what have you, and it's funny how those negative comments by the end of the season have turned into positives, and people have almost become your friend, if you want to say, even though you've never talked to them. They can feel, they can relate to you, and it was very humbling to I had over 4,000 people reach out to me and give me letters and stuff, and thank me for inspiring them, or telling me how they could relate. And it took me a year and a half to respond to everyone. I took it as a personal personal thing to my heart, that if they had the time to reach out and say that to me, I could find the time to reach out and respond in a personal. I didn't do no generic thing. I read each one, and I put something in each one that they would know that I took the time to listen to them and really pay attention to what they were saying.
That's no small undertaking, that's for sure. But it's also, I think it shows in your character then, right? If you're not prepared to do a job that's less than like what you would hope to receive yourself, if it takes time, then that's fine, but you're gonna do a good job. I'm curious, you said that you had a lot of time on your own, obviously alone, but the thing that I wondered, what I thought would be interesting, is that when you were out there, you weren't necessarily spilling your guts, telling all your stories, all your secrets. Like some people become like a completely open book. I guess it's kind of a relevant metaphor now. But you said to me in the last conversation we had before this actual chat that you tried not to. There were some elements of yourself that you didn't share with people.
It's a healing journey. It's not about causing more pain. And that's how I really embraced my journey. I talk about it, and, people always said to me, oh, you should apply for that. You'd be great on that show. And, I knew that, and I wanted to, but it was, my boys were growing up. I was running a business. My wife was going to school, being a nurse, all kinds of things. And nothing was right. And then all of a sudden, things seemed kind of right. So I filled out an application, and that led to the next application, and then it led to an interview, and it's quite a long, drawn out process to get on the show. And they're very diligent in everything they do, and they brought 25 of us to boot camp.
Oh, wow.
And we all, displayed some of our skills and our talking abilities and our stories and what have you. And then they make the final decision out of that 25. And that was a lot of fun. There were a lot of, and Dave Holder, and just an amazing fella, and extremely, you ever want to learn something about wilderness survival and stuff, Dave Holder is the guy to talk to. Like, he's just a book of knowledge, and he has this way of almost explaining things in layman terms where everybody can understand it and grasp the concept that he's trying to display. And that's quite an attribute, really. And, that was the whole point. If I had went on 10 years ago, I would have been more about the ego and stuff, that rather than it would have been all about winning. And don't get me wrong, I was out there to win it. Don't ever mistake that.
Yeah.
But I had a different purpose too, and I really embraced the opportunity to truly self-reflect and take my own journey with no excuses, no influences, and no blame. Everything was on my shoulders, and you know, it's one of the things that goes out on one of the billboards that Sanford Outdoors put out for me. They put a bunch of billboards out, and it was great. And one of them says, "One man has a closet full of secrets that he puts in a book. Another man has a book full of secrets that he puts in a closet." And I wrote that just before I went out there, and I really thought about it. And you know, those secrets don't, they're secrets for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And I really wanted to tell my story without telling all the little stories. You know, I wanted to, we all have things we regret and mistakes we've made, and we don't need to emphasize on those. We don't need to go into the fine details and pick them apart. Just accept them for the truth they are, the pain they've caused, and move on. Let them heal. And, you know, that's I really embraced that opportunity, and I'm very grateful that I had that opportunity. And I'm very happy with the way they edited it, even though I really didn't give them those fine details of the stories to have to worry about them. When I come back, they had almost 700 hours of me.
The way you express that.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And
700 hours. And that's you also missing a few stories too.
Oh yeah, there's lots of stories. I didn't even talk about what I call the fun shit. I spent so many hours in the woods and stuff, and I didn't need to get in and talk about bar fighting and chasing good-looking women around, and all the things that kind of are part of being Wyatt. But I embrace the things that matter. Like I say, a lot of the ego died out there. Hopefully all of it,
It's interesting. You said something just then about giving. It's interesting. I guess in my perception, sometimes talking through things that have happened to you is a good way of kind of healing. It's kind of, I don't know, I'm saying very obvious things, but that talking out maybe wrongs that have been done to you or bad things that have happened is a process to healing. But in a funny way, I understand what you're saying. I think is that there is a selfish to that. If it's in a public forum, it may be, okay, maybe talking about that stuff out loud is going to make you feel better, but it is going to cause some harm out in the world to other people. So it's very big of you to have that awareness, I think, if that's what I'm interpreting is correct.
I've talked about them lots,
Yeah.
Probably too much, but in close circles. And in a way, it's a lot of a pity card. And it doesn't heal. It's just a reminder of the pains, and it doesn't deal with them. And all you're doing is telling that story. You're not analyzing it and seeking it for the truth of it. And one thing that there's a lot of things that happen in life. Good things happen to bad people, and bad things happen to good people. And when you can look at a lot of things in life and go, it wasn't my fault, you look at it very differently. A lot of times that sense of blame and fault and what have you spills over, and even if it's not yours, you carry the burden of it. And we do a lot to harm ourselves further by manifesting and dwelling on negatives. And I never realized that. And when you start looking at things in a different light, that's when you allow yourself the ability to kind of heal. You have to face them for what they really are. And sometimes that's an ugly thing to face. And lots of times, until you accept the faults of yourself, it's really hard to accept and forgive the faults of others. And
Yeah.
I spent too much time playing the blame game, making excuses, finding the bottle, finding drugs, whatever, and just not dealing with the problem.
I have a question, which by all means, if you're not comfortable answering it, then we can edit this out. I'm curious, before you went on Alone, were you dealing with addiction at that point? And did you, as you went
Oh yeah,
into the Alone
I still am.
process,
I
was
always
that the
will be.
point? Yeah.
I always will be. I started drinking at a very young age, and it only got worse, and it led to other avenues. And right up until the day I stepped on the plane, I was drinking. Weed's one that marijuana is one that'll never leave my. I'm kind of like a Willie Nelson in that, where I'm
Yeah.
100% pro weed. I grow my own organically every year. I'm a daily user, and
Yeah.
I have no that to me. But it was also, I never looked at myself as it being an addiction. I smoked
Yes.
cigarettes, I drank coffee, I drank alcohol, I did whatever kind of drug I decided to do at that time of the day or whatever, right up until I left. And I
Yeah.
walked away and left every one of them. You never see me having jitters out there, or I've always had this mindset that if it doesn't control me, if I can walk away at any time, it's not a problem, which was wrong,
Yes.
but that was my belief and my assessment and essentially my excuse.
So it's interesting. I was going to ask that question. I mean, I can't think of a single way of having a harder cold turkey situation than going and being on your own with limited food and resources. So you didn't, I mean, did you feel that like for the first, I don't know,
Not
days,
at all.
weeks of the process?
Not at all. I,
That's
you
so
know,
interesting.
it, it's one of the things that my dad always, as it's so, and a lot of the issues were my dad. And a lot of the things that were revealed out there was I wouldn't have been out there. I wouldn't have been able to do the things I was able to do without my dad and all the teachings and all the lessons and things that I thought were hardships and what have you, because I didn't understand them.
Yes.
And it doesn't mean you agree with everything as a child, but I understand them where I never did. And everything he did was out of love and trying to make me a better person. And also knowing that the world's not always fair. You know, he knew that as good as anybody. And, you know, that's just, Dad always said, he said, I'm a better father than mine was. He's a better father than his was, and you'll be a better father than I am. And hopefully your boys will be a better father than you were. And that's the way things are supposed to work. We all learn
Yeah.
from our mistakes and we learn from the mistakes of others. And, things that you think of while you're going through a hardship or an angry moment or whatever, you don't analyze the truths of them and you don't see the values in that lesson. And
Mm.
out there, what I thought were hardships and punishments and neglect and all, I now look at as lessons
Mm.
and valuable lessons. Some of them were hard lessons. I'm not going to deny that, but they came from the heart, and they, no matter what went on, Dad never turned his back on me. It'd be more the other way around. I, you know,
Yeah.
uh, it was me who was the hard ass, the one who created things to be worse than they needed to be.
It's interesting. It's interesting the way you say that. While I was thinking about this conversation beforehand, it kind of felt like to me that obviously Alone, as it is for many people when they take part in that experience, there's a big change in the way you perceive the world in and the way that you kind of perceive yourself. So it's almost like I would love to hear stories from before. Obviously, anything that you're comfortable with, and I have a few areas that we could maybe talk about, and then the Alone experience, as a thing, because obviously there's so much that we can talk about there. And then now the things that are different and the way that you approach life. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And you know, like I said, one of the best ways I could describe Alone is humbling.
Yeah.
There's no other better word for, and if I had been out there 10 years ago, I would have done as well. I might have done better. I don't know.
Hmm.
But I would have been focused on nothing other than winning, because that would have been my ego. That would have been the Wyatt of before.
Yes.
Um, Whereas, you know, one of the things, my kids were a big part of me wanting to heal and wanting to be a better person, because I lived in a different world where, you know, I didn't confront my dad on a lot of issues. I more was apt to run away from him and what have you, and then confront him. And I never wanted that from my boys. I wanted them to be able to talk to me about anything.
Hmm.
And in that, they had no trouble telling me my faults, and saying, "Dad, you're wrong. Dad, why do you talk to Mom like that? Dad, you're drinking too much," and on and on. And having that really set it in my mind that a lot of this is your problem, Wyatt. This is this isn't about everyone else all the time. Maybe it's time you have a look at that mirror. And that's what, you know, with age comes wisdom, or it should anyway. And you know, that's what I never looked at my own faults. I made excuses for them. I made, you know, and I don't do that anymore. You know,
That's
and
great.
as far as talking about the anything negative about the old Wyatt, it is irrelevant,
Yes.
because when I said I left those buried
Yes.
under
Yeah.
the shore of Reindeer Lake, I meant that. And I don't want to talk about them anymore because they're gone.
Yeah. And it's
They,
only, yeah, going to breed negativity. So I guess
yeah,
more what I wanted to ask you about was just things like memories of growing up where you did. And you mentioned something in another podcast about spending time hanging out with trappers of the old days back then. And I'd love to hear some stories about those experiences, because I think whereas a lot of those things that you've mentioned before shaped how you experienced Alone now, and also your father's influence and meaning that you actually got to go on Alone, I feel like those sorts of experiences out in the boonies with trappers, learning from them, also probably played a big part.
well, my dad and my grandfather were avid hunters. My dad, an avid fisherman. Um, I love doing both, and
Okay.
I always wanted to uh, make him proud with that, including my grandfather. And we had an old hunt camp, 20 by 20, and there was 8 members. It was founded by my grandfather and a bunch of friends, Jack Walker and Scoop Booth, Ellis Booth, we call him Scoop, Billy Shell and Paul Walker, and my dad, and Harvey and Billy Burke. And, you know, all 8 would go there, and they started in 1955. And back then, there was no cell phones, there was no phone at the hunt camp, still isn't. And um, you would wait in anticipation for them to come home and hear those stories and what have you. And they were all older. And I really, I love them. I love when my dad got his Field and Stream and Outdoor Life magazine. And I'd go through and read that story. This happened to me and all these. And I was just, and that wasn't very common for kids my age. So therefore, I was kind of like a social outcast with my own age group.
Hmm.
And I was very fortunate to have these old boys around that would allow me into their circle, because that's where I wanted to be. And I wanted to learn how to skin a beaver, and I wanted to learn how to set a trap and set a snare. And I wanted to learn about that hunting spot or fishing spot way back in where nobody ever got to, or you had to work your ass off to get in there and all those things. And, you know, there old Roy McKay and Lauren Greenaway and old John McLennan, and there were so many of them, Leonard Locke, and they were just all really good to me. They taught me so many little lessons, and they took the time, and it was a blessing to have that and be able to experience that. And you know, that old Lauren had a place that was called Lauren's Cat House, and it was just across the bay. And after my chores were done and work was done, I could head across there and hang out in the trapper shack and not talk, which was rare for me. You know, it was always one of those things. My mother always used to joke, "Yeah, he come out talking and hasn't shut up since." And you know, but over there I would listen, and I learned the art of storytelling, and I loved those stories, and you know, and I learned all the advice and learned how to mock a man because of a situation and not belittle somebody. You know, there's a big difference in friendly banter and common joking of camaraderie rather than belittling somebody and harming them with words. And that's a fine balance. And
it absolutely is.
Yeah, and I've made mistakes learning that lesson too, and how to display that properly, and how to push things too far or not push things too far. You know, and at the same time, I learned how to do it when I needed to, and could be pretty vicious sometimes. And you know, those are things you learn that weren't so good. You know,
Yes.
things that we did. Like I said, one of the biggest lessons out there was looking at my own faults where I never had, and I was able to understand the faults of others a lot better when I finally looked at my own. And I was able to forgive others and ultimately forgive myself.
Yeah. So how old were you when you were having these experiences, going off to the trapper shack and kind of in some ways
Well,
isolating yourself? Go on.
when I was, from the time I can remember, my first experience with it was in the mornings waiting for my dad and a couple of his buddies, Ronnie Hubbard and Paul Walker, and them to come back from duck hunting and see how many ducks and geese they'd shot. And my brother and I, we would get 25 cents a duck, which back then was a lot of money. You know, back then I could go and I could buy a pop and a bag of chips for a quarter, you know, so 25 cents. So they come home with a great big pile of ducks and geese, and my brother and I'd be out there plucking them. And well, you plucked them right. You know, we didn't breast them out. You plucked them out right. And if there was too many pin feathers, Dad'd say, well, that's not done right. Finish it up right and pull all those pin feathers out. And it was all part of the lesson, but that lesson had a reward. And of course, they'd be picking some too, and you'd hear the story. And oh yeah, that one he come in, and oh, you folded him right up. Oh, that was a far shot, you know. And oh, the old dog, boy, we never would have got that one if it wasn't for the old dog. What a great retrieve! And just, you know, and I was just enthralled listening to all those. And those stories go back right to where I can remember, you know, like you say, my grandfather and my father and them coming back from hunt camp. And I never got to go to the hunt camp. I think the first year I ever went, I was 23 or 24.
Oh,
because
wow.
no, I had went hunting. I shot my first moose with those same guys because we went on a different hunt. It was 1987. We had couple tags. We were hunting up in 54, and that morning, Scoop he shot a nice little bull. We got that bull out, and of course, well, let's have a little celebration. And my brother and I, we were too young to tie into the bottle around the camp and stuff like that, you know. You'd get a beer and get told to drink it slow because it's the only one you're getting type thing. And well, my dad them, they were all there. And I said to my brother, I said, well, Dad seen a bull down in that other area and never got a shot at it this morning. Let's go down to that. So Warren went to one end of it and I went to the other. And I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden, here comes 3 moose barreling right down the gut to me. And I up with the old 308, and bang, and the first one drops, and bang, the second one drops, and it gets up, and I bang, it goes down again, and I pull, and I fire the next 2 shots at this one running away, and, well, I missed it. And, well, the guys back at the camp, they'd heard the shooting, and I'm sitting there, and I go running up, and I'm looking, and oh, hey, the one's dead, the other one's dead. I go check the tracks of the other one. No, I didn't. I don't know. Maybe I did. 16 years old. The adrenaline is just pumping, and this is the first moose hunt I've ever been on. This is like, so I was just ecstatic, and I'm going to run up the hill, and I had to get back to the camp by running, and all of a sudden I hear, Wyatt, and I'm what? And I look up, and it's my grandpa. He's on the hill. And he goes, was that you shooting? Yeah. He said, I got 2, maybe 3. And like, he's going, no. And all of a sudden I'm kind of like the hero at the camp that night. And it was like, and I get to tell my story. And I told that story and told that story, and they wanted to hear it again. And it was just such a awesome feeling. And, I'll never forget that moment. And, it's one of the things I got. Old Lloyd Donor, he was there. He did enough drinking for me, too, that night, and ended up puking his guts out behind the trailer and all the rest of it. Old Lloyd, he gave me a $5 bill. Back then, like you say, $5 was I could fill up I could fill up the tank in the car with that. It was,
yeah.
And on that $5 bill was 1987. Congratulations to Wyatt on shooting his first moose. And I talk about it a lot, about the amount of times where I didn't have 2 nickels to rub together, but that $5 bill stayed in that photo album my brother talked about one time how he took it out and was going to buy a drink at the bar with it. And he said he had taken it out of the album and went to the bar with it, and he just couldn't do it.
What do you think would have happened if he had? There would have been hell to pay.
That would have been one where I don't know. The old man would have been pretty ugly to deal with on that, because there are certain things you just don't do, and that would have been one of the top of his list. Yeah, first of all, it wasn't his to take, and stealing was not that was one of the. That was a big no-no around my house.
Yeah. So you shot these 2 moose. How far away were they from camp? Was that a big pack out? Were you expected to pitch in and do everything as well?
Yeah, they were a fair ways, and back then we didn't have 4-wheelers and stuff. And it was the last run of the night, getting close to dark, and we went down and we gutted them out, got them all set up. Now, they'll be fine here for the night. We got them all situated, and next morning, Dad and I went in, and the old guys were getting camp cleaned up because we were going to head out, and they were getting a little longer in the tooth. And, I was 16 years old, pretty strong. We had to carry 8 quarters of moose out. I remember Dad and we had to go up this big hill, and we just cut the quarters off, and we put a rope through the shank in between the tendon, and have one on here and one on here, and just put them on our backs. And Dad and I were going up this hill, and you just had to reach out about that far, and you could touch the ground in front of you. That's how steep that goddamn hill was. We were sweating like pigs and just as exhausted as they come, but you did the whole damn thing with a smile. And, it was part of those things where work was never frowned upon in my life. My grandfather was a farmer. I can remember my dad and my Uncle David. Grandpa would be driving the tractor. My brother and I were little. We'd have the old square bales of hay stooped, and, the tractor, the trailer would be, my head height then, but the waist of my dad type thing. Dad would walk on the ground, and Uncle David would be up on the trailer, and Grandpa driving the tractor, and Dad would grab one in this hand, one in this hand, and fire him up onto the wagon. And next thing you know, he'd have one, he's firing him up, way above his head. Uncle David would catch it, and he'd pile them, and the wagon would be full to the point where they couldn't throw them any higher. We'd go back to the barn, and they'd get unloaded. Then Uncle David would walk on the ground, and Dad would be on the trailer stacking them, and they would do that all day. And, shoveling snow, splitting wood, there was always work. And you didn't go hunting and you didn't go fishing until the work was done. And that work, carrying that moose out, was a work you took pride in. Work, I remember one time my cousin Tate and I, we were back, at our hunt camp long after Grandpa and Jack Walker and them couldn't go back in there. We went back in, and Dad hadn't deer hunted in there for years. And we had so many deer up around Dorset that we didn't need to go to the hunt camp. We decided we'd go back down. The deer population kind of diminished around Dorset. So my buddy Joe and my cousin Tate and Daryl Lundy and my dad and myself, we went back into the hunt camp. I'd been back in there all fall duck hunting and what have you. And we had to go back in across the river and back up along Montgomery Creek and what have you. And Dad hadn't been in there in years. We went in there, and Lundy shot a deer and didn't make the best shot on it. And of course, it ran straight back the other way. We got it. It was a long fucking way, a long way. And we gutted it out, and we come back, and we're just coming up to the one set of the high rock there. And Dad says, okay, we'll just swing up here and we'll follow up the river and we'll come out at the Partridge Creek and we'll head out across Partridge Creek by Victoria Brig. I said, fuck. I said, we just got to go straight down through here and we'll pop up the river and we'll be just right up at camp. No fucking, Dad, I've been duck hunting all. Oh, he friggin' argued with me. And I said, fine, I'm fucking dragging this. You guys go that way if you want. My cousin Tate, he looks at me because him and I have been dragging it. We were in better shape than all the rest of them. And he says, are you sure? I said, I'm fucking sure. He says, all right. He says, let's go. My dad, he goes off the other fucking way. And Tate and I go back. We go, sure as I said, down across the river, up the bank on the other side, dragged it up to the fucking hunt camp, hang it on the hanging pole, have a beer, have another beer. We're on our third beer, and the door comes open with the three of those guys. And what the fuck took you guys so long? And they're sweating like we're all cleaned up. The deer's hanging. And, oh yeah, the old man. That was one I tread lightly when I bug him about that. But I still throw the odd jab in at him. But yeah,
that's a good story.
Yeah, I had a lot of those. I remember one time Dad shot a deer. It was second week November. We always used to like to hunt the second week because there would be a little snow on the ground usually, just like today.
Yes.
And we were hunting just back of Wolfkin Lake, and Dad shot this doe, and she ran out into the goddamn beaver pond, and you could see where she went out, and she's standing. He didn't hit her quite right, and she had her body up against this old uprooted tree out in the beaver pond. Dad looking, and the old beagle, she was running around. She knew that deer was out there, and well, Dad friggin' he seen it. Well, fuck. He pulled up the rifle and he cuffed her upside the ear, and down she went. And of course, the rest of us, well, we're not carrying a fucking canoe back in here to get that thing. Get going, old man. It was a good 75, 80 yards out in this beaver marsh. And, he peeled off the clothes, and all you see is this big glowing white ass going out into with a rope. And he hooked the rope on it and dragged it back. And, there was ice on the pond. I know exactly what kind of cold walk that was all about.
I was going to say, that has got to be cold.
Yeah, but, that was just part of the game. And, those are the ethics and the respect for the sport that we've always had, and that's why I don't duck hunt unless I got a retriever. Too many ducks get wounded and stuff, and I've seen it, and they fall into 3 feet of beaver grass and stuff. You're never going to find those damn things, and but an old lab, I've had a lot of them over the years, and I'll tell you, I take great pride in my dogs, and it's a lot of fun going and hunting ducks and having a good dog that works really well. And I got one right now, old Chunk. He's coming along.
Okay. I'm guessing, how many dogs do you usually have at the same time, duck dogs?
Oh, I usually only have one retriever at a time, but
Okay.
well, I got 3 of them right now just because I love dogs, and I got one. He's on his way out. He's on his last couple legs here. And then I've got a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. So, and the old guy, when he's gone, he won't get replaced. That 2's more than enough.
Yeah. Is it
Yeah.
Is it a tough process training them up to retrieve the ducks?
It's just time. It's time, and every dog's different. Some of them have the nose, some of them have all the different parts and what have you. Some listen better than others, and some just train better than others. And I had an old guy, Scar. He was my first duck dog that I owned after leaving home. And boy, that dog and I one day we shot 49 ducks between the group of us, between the morning and the evening hunt. He retrieved every single one. He was the only dog any of us had, and he just loved it. He just a beautiful dog though, and he died 3 months before his 15th birthday. And that was one of the hardest ones I ever had to deal with. He was like my best friend. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, I can imagine. That's it's heartbreaking, hey, going through that process. I guess when you're seeing the young ones coming up though as well and building that.
Oh, that's it. It was kind of my dad. Ever since I can remember, we had a retriever around, and my dad was, like I say, we're avid duck hunters, or avid hunters, period.
Yeah.
And I remember old Mick and old Jock, pair of my dad's dogs that we had when I was a kid, and Dad took great pride in him, just like I did, and just like my brother did, and every time we lost one, it was a heartbreak, and it was a heartbreak for the family, not just the guy who owned that dog, and because they were part of the family. I'll never forget Dad. One time he said, "Yeah, dogs," he says, "they hurt." He says, "They prepare you for when it really matters." And as you get older and you lose people, you understand that saying a lot more. And that doesn't take away anything from the loss of a dog, because the 3 days before old Scar had to be put down, I sat on my kitchen floor and bawled my eyes out and told him how much I loved him. And, that every word of that was true, and I'll never take away from the hurt of it, but not like losing a child or a parent or a grandparent or somebody that's been around forever.
On a day like the day that Scar retrieved, what was it, 49 ducks in one day, did you say? How do you treat a dog for that? Like, do you give him some rewards of some kind?
Oh shit, he got more rewards than any dog ever. The best one would be him sleeping on the end of the bed. He was quite a dog, though, and he get mad. He had a real tendency to know how to get to me. He hated when I'd leave for duck or deer season, and every time deer season would come along and he'd see me walk out the door with the gun and not taking him, I'd come home and he'll shoot something of mine. Chewed the stock on one of my guns one time, chewed my favorite shoes one time, chewed a knife handle another time. He always, if there was a little fuck you, Dad, every time I didn't take him. He loved to go. He'd be sitting there and just so hyper. And you know, that's the thing. It's the same as Chunk today. They love to do it as much as you do, you know, and they want to please you, and you know, it's that's how they look at it. It's the same way I wanted to please my dad and my grandfather. Well, so is my dog, you know, and they are my kid, you know, in a sense, and I treat them that way.
Yeah. Another animal which I've always found super curious is, I mean, this is a bit of a sidestep, but bears. They just have so much personality, and I think I remember hearing when you were telling some stories in another podcast I listened to, you would sit. It was baiting, I think, right? So I'd imagine you'd have quite a bit of time to watch them go about their
Oh yeah,
time
I like
around. You
bears.
get to see their personalities.
Yep, we have. I keep bees and stuff here too, and what have you. So they like to come around and try and rip a beehive apart every once in a while. So I got electric fences and cages and stuff. And I remember one time I had this old sow, and I put the electric fence up, and she'd come up. And if you've ever seen a bear or anything touch her nose to an electric fence, boy, I'll tell you, the snort and squeal and the way they turn tail and run, it's comical in itself. And I I had one, you know, bears around here because I kept bees and stuff like that. Um,
Yeah.
I would I there's only we've been here about 24 years now, and I've only shot 2 nuisance bears here.
Wow.
And that, considering where we live, and you know, that's pretty good. And we've had lots around, and usually, you know, I'll let the dogs go and chase them away, and 3 or 4 times. And I've got a if you take a golf ball and you drill a hole in it and you stick an arrow in it, and then shoot them in the ribs with a compound, they don't like that. And it doesn't hurt them. It just gives them a big whack right in the rib cage, and they let us squeal out, and they tend to stay away after that. So, but the one time my boys were up on the deck, and I was out noodling around the yard, and we'd had this bear, and he was being a bit of a young male, and probably about 250 pounds, and he was being a little ornery. We chased him off, and he was stealing my chicken feed and coming in and chicken coop and what have you. One day I'm going around the corner of the building, and all of a sudden the jaw popping in the bushes, and he's snorting, and I'm like, oh fucking, he's right there. Like, he's within 15 yards of me, and I'm like, I just yell up at the boys, let those fucking dogs out, let the fucking dogs out. And and the dogs come barreling around the corner, and off the bear goes. And they come back, and 15 minutes later, after they come back, here comes the bear. And that was actually, I should grab the 243, and friggin' the wife says, well, I want to shoot it. I said, well, I said, all right. So she lined up on the deck, and he come through, and he was out, you know, he was probably about 50 yards away, and she lined up and leaned down, and she punched him right through the heart, and that was the end of that bear. Absolutely perfect shot. And he was tasty too.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I can imagine.
yeah,
What
people
time?
don't realize how good bear tastes.
Oh, no, I mean, the first animal I ever shot in the US was that bear. And I've got to say, it was right after, I don't know, berry season. I don't know if you buy into the whole what they've been eating kind of influences the taste
Oh,
of the meat. And
definitely.
I have, it was such an amazing tasting animal. Yeah, I've got to say, I miss that meat
Yeah,
regularly.
no, that's how they are. Like, the years that the berries are heavy around here, and the mushrooms and stuff. You'll notice, like, we have a lot of beech nuts and oak around here, and
Okay.
if we have a good beech nut crop, you can actually taste the bitterness in both the deer and the bears. You know, because they get heavy on them. They're high fat and high protein, and the deer and the bears really uh,
Yeah.
they'll really pick on the beech nuts, and you can taste the bitterness in the meat. It uh, the difference between I was down last year with my dad and Rich Fortney in West Virginia. Rich invited us down for a whitetail hunt, and they some of the best tasting whitetail I've ever had. And just it all comes down to food source. And down around my grandfather's farm, when they're out in the clover fields, eating the apples and pears and stuff all fall and all that. There's no comparison to the deer that we eat up here.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, I'm 100% believer in that.
We have a bear that keeps breaking down our fences, and I think the problem is that our neighbor is no longer taking care of the property anymore. They moved away, and they have a bunch of fruit trees, and those fruit trees are getting rampaged by the bear, and so it's drawn them in, and they're getting complacent, and now they're breaking down our fences and coming taking our pears and our apple trees now. I'm kind of getting to that
They
point
love
where
pears.
oh man, yeah, yeah. Thankfully, the pear that we have isn't too high up, so unlike some of the other trees where it just like climbs up, snaps a branch off, I mean, the amount of destruction these things are capable of, it's like they're brutal. The trees could just like left to
They
almost
do that
being
with
like
the
a
oak.
nub. Yeah,
They do
they're
that with the
just
oak trees up here. They'll climb up an oak tree there before the acorns start dropping, and they'll just start breaking. They call them bear nests, and it's where they're actually just breaking branches off, and they just sit there and keep piling them up as they're eating all the acorns off, and they look like a squirrel nest up in the tree, but it's actually from where the bear's been. I I remember one time my brother shot a bear. It would have been back in the early to mid '80s, and we were hunting this. It's the same as this year. Like you could bait all you wanted, but the odds of getting one coming into a bait are so slim because there's so many acorns. Like I
so
took
much
a couple
food.
videos where the ground is littered. Like a couple of the bushes that I go deer hunting in, you got to wear a hard hat walking through it because you'll get whacked in the head with acorns all day. And we were hunting this oak stand, and my brother he shot a bear, and 11 other bears come falling down out of the trees around that oak stand. They were as soon as that shot rung out, they just started just like, what the fuck is going on? And they were all up in there, just and it's the same as anything else. A lot of people don't realize, like, where the food is the best is wherever you can drive through 40 farm fields of hay and clover down, and you won't see a deer. And then all of a sudden you hit one field and there'd be 50 deer standing there in it. And that's because
Yeah.
it's the best. And they know it. And it's amazing how they sense that. And in the wild, it's things I look for. Like I said, this year, there is so many acorns on the ground here, but I've walked countless miles where there's hardly a deer track around them. And then all of a sudden you hit one and there's a trail coming in from every gut and every valley around because those are the acorns I want.
Yes. Do you ever harvest acorns yourself? Because I know some people make like a flour or something from them, right?
Yeah,
I
there's
guess.
all kinds of things you can do with them. And, they're like any other nut. And,
Yes.
I don't personally harvest them for myself. But like you get acorns in, like, we used to get those mixed nuts for Christmas and stuff where,
Hmm.
you'd have the big walnuts and you'd have all those variety of nuts there, pecans and all that. And acorns were commonly in that bowl,
Oh,
you know.
really?
And, and the difference is like your white oak varieties, your burls and all those, they're not near as bitter. Your red oaks are very bitter. And that's why they're actually meant more of a survival food for the deer and the bears. As the ground is going in the fall, the deer and the bears will hit the white oak stands. The red oak, they're full of tannins, and the tannins leach out over the course of the winter, so they don't touch them all fall. And as they leach out in the winter, the deer and the bears have a survival food to reestablish their fats and proteins in the spring. It's another way that Mother Nature take care of everything, right? Like she's
Yeah.
so much more advanced than any of us ever realize.
Yeah. Yeah. That's wild. I love the kind of more time I spend in nature. And I've been lucky enough to spend, I guess, quite a lot but in a slightly different way when I was younger. But now I'm getting kind of really into wilderness skills and hunting and foraging. I love this constant surprises and like lessons that you get. Like I have a friend who always says like Mother Nature always just gonna surprise you. Like you never know. You think you're figuring it out, and then just like Mother Nature does what she wants. you know.
That's right.
Um,
And that's the beauty of her. Last year I ate 18 different types of wild mushrooms, and
Amazing.
I know I love them. Like, and I'm constantly, okay, is this one good? Research. You'll never remember them all,
Yes.
and some of them are better than others. I found one last year called a Burgundy Wine Cap, and it was
Yes.
very nutty and very dense, almost like a cremini. And it was, I'd love to find them every year because they're delicious.
Yeah. I've probably said it many times on this podcast already, but I don't know about your season this year, but the mushroom season is really at its kind of peak at the moment, and it's been absolutely magnificent this year. Like the amount of mushrooms popping everywhere. Like we've had, I'm in an area lucky enough where there's a lot of porcini growing. There's a lot of ball pines. Oh, the rain's just pouring
Right?
right now. As Mother Nature could hear calling the
Yeah,
mushrooms.
I can hear it.
Um, so yeah, we've had. I mean, I must have picked over 100 porcini just in within half a mile, like half a kilometer of where my house is. Just like wandering around, it's just been
Right?
so
Do you
amazing.
dehydrate them, Brandon Robin?
Yes, yeah. So I've actually just started doing that this last year. I dabbled a bit the year before, but now I decided I'm going to do it properly this year. So I got hold of a dehydrator, and I have more porcini, dried porcini that I could ever have a need for,
Right.
but I can't stop. I
That
can't stop
no,
myself.
and and things like that. As we get older, like my wife and I, like my wife picked 25 pounds of blackberries here last year.
Yes,
You make blackberry jam. We do maple syrup here, dehydrate mushrooms, and you put little gift baskets together for Christmas for people that have everything and stuff. Like what do you buy
exactly.
somebody that's got everything that's really just kind of stupid? Like
Yeah.
all it is clutter. So,
Yes.
but you
Yeah.
give somebody a gift of food, give them a jar of honey, a jar of maple syrup, a thing of blueberry jam, and a thing of blackberry jam, and a basket of dried mushrooms. Well, that's
That's
perfect
me.
gift.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And that's actually what I've started doing. It's such a great point because it's true. Like it carries a lot more meaning, right? Like food is always a good gift anyway. But if it's something that you've used some skills or experiences in some way to then share that, I think it feels different as well. Like it's really nice giving those gifts to people.
you know, like me, I go to the duck pond, and of course, I'm usually walking in pitch black and what have you. But I shoot a handful of ducks, and as I'm walking out, I'm paying attention for every type of mushroom, and I'll pick them up, and I'll be doing like a mushroom gravy over duck breasts and stuff. That, you know, it's awesome. In the spring, I'm out. We get our morels here in the spring, and we get our leeks here in the spring, and what have you. So you're going out and you're picking a bunch of leeks and morels and stuff like that, and that's our spring turkey season and spring bear season. So, you're out and you're just, Mother Nature provides, and the same thing. Like we got great fishing around here and all the rest of it. So there's something satisfying about rewarding or sharing the rewards of Mother Nature with your family and friends, and sitting down to a meal that is just awesome.
Absolutely, man. Like I completely love when you combine different objectives. Like it's been so fun. Like turkey season for me as well is the same. I'm just about to go out for some turkeys in the next couple of days. And it's so fun if you're like, oh, you've just spotted some turkeys and you're kind of making your way in and you're like also spotting mushrooms and like trying to quickly pull them up, stick them in pockets or whatever it is you've got. I should take a basket with me while I hunt turkeys as well. Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, I got just a little mesh sack, just a little mesh bag that
Okay,
I carry, and it
that's a
works
good
great
idea.
for. And yeah, it's light and you can stuff it in your pocket, and it works good for keeping the mushrooms and what have you. And yeah, there's so many delicious varieties and what have you, and it's when you've done it long enough and you find those ones like last year, the chanterelles around here were just fabulous, and like the oyster mushrooms, we have so many delicious varieties, and when you find that big cluster of them, my buddy and I, Keith Winterbottom, actually, I was supposed to go there and get some work done on my tattoo today, but the weather was so bad but Keith and I did some bear hunting this year, and he shot one, I haven't, but we still sat together. We were looking at this big spot of hen of the woods, chicken of the woods, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And it was past its prime, right? But
Yeah.
I go, next year, like I'm here. That because it's that type of stump that you know they're coming back. And
Absolutely.
I got my little notebook that I'm writing down. And okay, I was on the shore here, and this way, okay, and oyster mushrooms or chanterelles, or and I've got this little because they're gonna come back for 4 or 5 years on the same stumps.
Yeah.
If you
So
find them
good.
early enough, and it's awesome. This year, my buddy, Combs tooth or bear tooth or lion's tooth. There's all kinds of different names for them. I make crab cakes out of them because they have this
Oh,
like
do you?
same texture. They're all part of the coral tooth family, and they're just delicious.
Yes. Okay. So I just found some lion's mane for the first time a few days ago, but that's different from lion's tooth, right? I think.
It's similar. Like they're all part of the coral tooth, comb tooth mushrooms. Lion's
Okay.
mane's a little different than that, but the lion's mane, I've actually got some spores here that I'm going to start. I've never actually tried them myself. I've never actually harvested them, so I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. Nice.
So, but yeah, I
So I
make.
wonder, I was going to say, maybe, well, you were about to finish a thought. So finish that thought, but then I'd love to ask you a little bit about Alone. But what were you going to say?
Just about the crab cakes, just all I do is dice up a little onion and pepper and garlic, and you mix it with a little bit of Dijon mustard, some mayo, throw an egg or two in there, and then some panko. You don't want to go too, and then you just take it up and you just blend them all up, make a crab cake out of them, and then just a
Yes.
little touch of oil and fry them on both sides in the oil, and then I make a garlic aioli for them, and
Oh, that
beautiful.
sounds so good. It sounds like that might be good with the lobster mushroom as well. I just found a huge haul of
The
lobster
lobster
mushrooms.
mushrooms, I'll have to. There's a like an Alfredo pasta that I use
Okay.
for lobster mushrooms. It's kind of, oh my god, delicious. My buddy Aaron Stone, he's got a place in Quebec up on Lake Kippawa, and we go up there and the lobster mushrooms grow every summer. And yeah, he sends me some back, or I pick them when I'm up there pickerel fishing with him, or walleye, depending on who you are. But yeah, no, they're delicious. And this pasta recipe, it's one I got off the internet, but
Yeah.
I'm telling you, if you like lobster mushrooms, just look up the lobster mushroom pasta, Google, it'll come up. That's
Okay.
I always, everything I put a little variation to it, and it's the same. Like if you're doing a lot of wild mushrooms like oyster mushrooms and stuff, if you put just a little touch of balsamic vinegar on them, it really brings out the earthiness of the mushrooms, and
Ah,
just you don't need much, but it just brings out a beautiful flavor of the earthiness of the mushroom.
that's a great thing to know. Ah, I'm going to try that. Nice. Thanks, Wyatt. So you also found a bunch of mushrooms while you were in your time in Reindeer Lake during Alone season 10, right?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think you even tried some
Some
that you
hedge,
hadn't had before, didn't you?
never seen them, and that's the thing. So I found out about, I guess it was about 6 to 8 weeks before I was leaving where I was going, and it was just the general. They told us the Larange region. So here I am studying every plant, trying to, and you just get overwhelmed, right? And I found
Yeah.
these hedgehog mushrooms, and I was sure I knew what they were, but it wasn't. I knew what the boletes were, and I knew what the honey mushrooms were, and I knew what, but I never held, and I had a score of them, like a big, probably close to, 7, 8 pounds of them for sure. And
Were
I
they
was
the
like,
chunky,
no, they
like the
grow
sweet
big, and
tooth ones, or this? Okay, they're the big hedgehogs, because you get the
the
skinny
big
belly button ones
hedgehogs,
as
and they got
well.
the combs coming down on the underneath. They
Yeah,
kind of got
nice,
like
nice.
they kind of got like a grouse type pattern on the top of them. They're like a light brown with the darker brown lines and a pattern to them. And I was sure I knew what they were. And, the show kind of, they do their editing and what have you. And I was kind of, whatever. And I stuck a piece up, and, everybody had to find out one way or another. And yes, some of them could have made me sick, but I was getting to the point where I was that hungry. I
Yeah,
fucking really just about ready to try everything. And I knew, okay, if I feel any kind of off this one little piece, yeah, I'm gonna be fine. I didn't eat. I just stuck it up under the corner of my gum and went for a walk. And after 5 or 6 hours of that thing slowly dissolving in there, and I felt fine, I went, fuck it, I'm eating these things. And like I said, I was already very close to sure that I knew what they were, but I'd never held one in my hand. I'd never, and one of those things you don't want to second guess, but
no, yeah, you've got to risk
and
it
I'm sure
to
glad because
win the
they were
biscuit, right?
delicious. I'd roast a squirrel or a grouse or a marten over my fire, and then I'd just cut it into quarters, and I'd put the quarters in my soup pot, and I'd throw a handful of berries, and we didn't have extra containers or anything, so I'd have bearberries and crowberries and blueberries. They were all in the same bucket. As I'm walking around, I'm picking berries. They're all going in the same bucket. And every morning I'm having the berry tea. That was one of my favorite things in the morning. It just kind of warmed the soul and get you going for the day, because it's not like I had a bacon and eggs or, some hash browns to go with it. So,
Yeah,
I,
yeah,
I'd make up this big pot of berry tea, and it'd get me my fluid. And then I'd eat all the berries out of the bottom, even though they were just a pile of mush by the end of it. And every night I would have a Labrador tea, but I would take a handful of berries, and I'd take a handful of mushrooms, and I'd take a couple quarters of the grouse or the squirrels or both, and the marten. And I'd take that real fine, fluffy wood ash that you get, not the gritty stuff, that real light, fluffy. And I'd throw a big, and I mean a handful, right into my soup pot, and I just let it simmer all day over the fire as I was smoking fish and doing whatever. And having that rewarding soup and that warm broth and those little tender pieces of meat every night, and that, I'm eating the brains and I'm eating the eyeballs, and there's nothing going to waste. And you hit the liver and the heart and all the rest of it. And it was such a comforting feeling, after, like I say, they had almost 700 hours of video of me, and I might have got 2 hours of airtime on the
yes,
12
yeah, yeah.
episodes. So the way it's condensed, there's a lot of shit that goes on that nobody ever sees.
Did you, when you first got there, what were your, I mean, you're going to like make assumptions, or you're going to get an impression from a place? Did you think I'm going to have like a lot of success hunting here, or it's going to be a fishing place, or did you have any kind of
I had,
first thoughts?
oh yeah, when I looked at it, I look at the area and I went, holy fuck, this is awesome. Like there's just going to be everything here.
Okay.
And one of the same things that took me out was lack of sodium. I'd studied all the plants and things like colt's foot and all the aquatic plants that had sodium, and they weren't in my area. And you don't really get a chance. You get 5 square miles, which is 3,500 acres, right? So
Hmm.
you don't really get to see everything. They just drop. They're not saying, "Oh, that's your spot over there." Start scanning your shoreline. It's all of a sudden they pull up to a spot and say, "Get the fuck out." And that's here's home. No,
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
so you didn't really have. I was the whole way. I was kind of looking at the area, but I had a game plan. And I knew they were going to drop me off in the lake, and I said, "Okay, I'm going to go up the shore this way, and I'm going to go up the shore this way the next day." And I'm going to pay attention to like landmarks and things like that I'll recognize for waypoints because, we have no compass. And, they kind of use Mikey as a big example of getting lost out there. People go, and he mocked himself and what have you. If you ever want to watch a funny podcast, it's called The Armchair Critic on Mike. It's not a podcast, it's on YouTube. And Mikey,
Okay.
he comes out and he's got his wool hat, a big slushy, and a bag of Doritos. And look at this fucking idiot, gets lost in his own fucking backyard and munching and eating ho-hos and going on. And he truly mocks himself just because of the character. But when you get out there, it was like Cade losing his arrows. You've never been in that bush before. You have no compass. You can't say, oh yeah, I went down around, I walked across the big bald rock and I went by the little slough hole and you can't retrace your steps because you don't know them. The moss grass and the Labrador tea growing everywhere, trying to trace your steps is almost impossible. So, the day that Mikey got kind of turned around, there was no snow on the ground, there was no sun, there was no moon, there's no waypoint to handle direction. Now,
Yes.
it's kind of like an old saying my dad used to always say, we get turned around in the bush lots. And I'm not lost. I just don't know where I am. And it's true, And that was the one thing we were always taught it growing up is pay attention to where you're walking in the bush and know, do I walk east? Do I walk north? Do I walk south? Do I walk west to get the fuck out of here? And one time I remember I was up moose hunting and we'd called a couple moose out in the morning and we never got a shot. We were bow hunting. And we said, we had agreed, we went back for lunch and we said, okay, we're going to go and we're going to line up along this cut. We knew where everyone was going to go. Wyatt, you're going to call. Got a guy on each side, another guy down at the end. We'll get our moose. So none of us took anything. We took our bare minimum. We took our bows, a bottle of water, and we walked in there. I start calling, and sure as shit, straight in front of me, I hear, whoa, whoa. I'm like, oh. And then I hear, and then I hear, and there's a cow over here and a cow over here, and this bull, he's standing straight in front of me. Don't know how far because the way they call and they're so directional, you just don't know. They can be 100 yards away or they can be a mile away and sound the exact same. They're so controlled in their directional and their tone, it's unbelievable. So I got no clue where this bull is. But I know that he's calling and these two cows are coming to him and he's answering me and the two cows are in. I go, fuck. He's just going to stand there. So I start walking in and I'm going to and I got my bow and I'm going, and I'm not I'm paying attention to, okay, this cow's coming in, this cow, and that bull, and I'm fucking walking through. Well, all of a sudden, I'm way the fuck in this bush. It's the evening hunt. Don't know where the bull and the two cows are gone, but it's not anywhere where I am. I hit this lakeshore and go, wasn't supposed to be here. No compass, no fuck all. I turn around and I start walking out. Well, next thing you know, it's pitch black. And I mean pitch black. No moon coming up, no sun going down. I know that I got to walk east to get out of here. I know that. But there's no way of me telling east. There's not a star in the sky. There is no physical element so I just friggin' started gathering up some firewood and lit a fire and walked around where I could keep gathering more fire and set up myself a bed for the night. About 3 hours, 4 hours later, I hear what way off in the distance, and it's not like you got a gun where you can fire, and Dad stood there and he called. And I had no clue. I had to follow his voice. That's all. And, I got it. And there's no fucking way I would have got out of that bush. It was a thick, boreal forest up in northern Ontario. And, but I was quite content just to lay back and have a fire and stay there for the night, rather than go and make it worse and hurt myself in the bush, stumbling around in the dark or, getting further lost than I fucking, because I knew that come morning, the sun's going to come up and I'm going to walk east and I'm going to get the fuck out of here. a lot of people panic in those situations. A lot of people, but that's the thing. Another one of those lessons I was always taught: you don't make your mistakes worse than what they already are. Relax, you'll be all right. And it's having that kind of confidence. It's the same people. There was one fella on I think it was season 2 of Alone, but I can't remember. He was a U.S. military guy, all the rest of it, and he's all worried about bears. Yes. And he shows up at his spot, and there's bear tracks all up and down the beach, and bear shit everywhere. And every friggin' noise he heard was a bear. Didn't matter if it was a squirrel or a grouse, the fucking bear. And as the sun's going, he didn't even stay the first night. He's like, get me the fuck out of here, because he overwhelmed himself. When you think about it, I've spent so many, and I'm not saying that a bear won't attack you or can't attack you or wolves can't, but I know how often it happens. And I know the thousands and thousands and thousands of people that walk through the wilderness every single day, and how rare a bear attack or a wolf attack is. Grizzlies are a little different organism, and so are polar bears. A polar bear, everything it sees is food. That's we're not, but a black bear or a wolf, that's not fucking worried at all about him. And it can be an interesting, I've walked in the pitch black, and I've had wolves light up and what have you around me, chasing moose, chasing deer, and it's an eerie feeling. Don't ever get me wrong, but am I worried? No, and that's one thing. But a lot of people, they panic. They can't handle that moment just because they're just not familiar with it.
Exactly. Yeah, I think if you're not used to it, then it's going to be. Yeah, it's going to feel extra heightened and extra scary, and your imagination then starts to take over, doesn't it? And that's, I remember reading a book once of like a big adventurer, an English guy called Ranulph Fiennes, and he said that the people he always looks for in teammates when he's doing like polar expeditions are the people who have like the smallest imaginations, because when you're walking along a glacier and you could fall through like 300-meter drop to your death, you don't want to be thinking about the potential for each step.
Right. And that, and whereas if you're thinking about the potential of each step, and that's why you carry a walking stick in those, and you're doing this in front of every step. I know my cousin and I, we did a hunt up on Tottigan Mountain in northern BC, and there's one path. We had all our gear for 8 days. We were doing a bow hunt. We had all our gear for 8 days on our backs. We have to go up. We did it the fastest he ever did it. And it was 6.5 hours straight climb. And that's just like putting a bundle of shingles on your back and climbing straight up a ladder for 6.5 fucking hours. I trained all summer to go on that hunt. We had bows. You weren't allowed a gun. You're not even allowed to take a gun there. Highest density of stone sheep in North America. And we're coming up, and there's one path. Even if you go on a guided hunt there, you have a 2-day horseback ride to come up the other trail system up the other way. So this way we're going up is one path, and we come up, and there's boulders the size of my house as you're going up and you're going around. And we come around this one, there's this great big pile of steaming fresh grizzly shit. And oh fuck, the last thing you want to do is bump into him on the corner. And every rock I was coming up to, I'd be making sure that I was not coming around the corner surprising him. We seen that grizzly, but that night we get up there and we get up the top, and then we got to go a couple kilometers across the top of the mountain just to get to the only fresh water source on the mountain, because you're not going to carry your water up for 8 days. And there's one little creek that runs through. So we get there, we set up the tent. We carried up a little jug of moonshine and an ounce of weed with us. Fucking got our Rocky Mountain food, freeze-dried dinners there. We open up a bag. We make ourselves a friggin' whatever dehydrated food we had that night. Had a snort of moonshine and a cup of tea and a smoked a joint. And I said, I'm going to fucking bed. Right behind you. Do we go to bed? That night, it snowed about 8 inches in our tent class. We're in one of those little mountain tents that's only like 3 feet off the ground. The tent comes down. I'm reaching for my knife because I'm dreaming grizzlies after and it's just all of that. I wasn't thinking snow in August, but I forgot I was on top of a fucking mountain. But what an exhilarating hunt. And I was so blessed to get to see that grizzly, you know. I was quite
Yeah.
happy to look at him 500 yards away, friggin', you know, meandering around through one of the draws, but still very cool to see. And, you know, those are experiences. The one night, Tate and I videotaped it, and it sounded like a train coming down the mountain, and you'd hear it way off. I go, oh, here it comes. And you'd see the tent, and it just started to waver a little bit. And then it'd be like this. And then it's like this. And then it's like this. And then bang, into the ground. And you could hear that coming down the mountain. We ended up sleeping like this, holding the poles up all night. It was the worst fucking night's sleep. Oh, yeah. But what a great adventure. We never ended up shooting a sheep. We both had our opportunities. Well, no, we both had shooter rams in range. Neither of us got to fire an arrow, but what an experience! I had 13 rams come right by me on this one draw. I've been sitting there waiting and waiting, and
Wow.
there was three shooters. There was three shooters, and the rest were all banana heads, we call them. And they're walking right by me, and I go to draw my bow, and they all scattering up, and I lose my shooters in this, and you don't want to make a mistake on these friggin' rams.
Yeah.
And when they hit 80 yards, I picked up my camera and started filming, and you know, but just an incredible experience. And
Yeah, that's amazing.
yeah,
You made me think of a friend who has been a guest on the podcast. Is I don't know if you know him. His name he's in where is he? He's in Canada somewhere. Adam Brennan. He's a trad bow hunter as well, and he's had
I
some.
don't know him, but I've heard that name.
Okay, yeah, he's got some great stories. He actually managed to stalk a grizz and shoot it with his trad bow at like, I think it was like 8 meters or something like that. I mean, you've got to have some serious stones to come around on a rock.
Oh
knowing
yeah,
that there's a grizzly on the other side of it.
yep.
That's for sure.
Yeah, it was. Fred Bear was one to do that. There was another guy that I watched do that with a trad bow, and you know, that's the thing too. You know, like I wouldn't go actually trying to stalk a grizzly with a traditional bow. You know, but Clay Hayes there, you know, winner of what was it, Clay season 7, I think maybe.
Yeah, maybe
After
7 or 8. Yeah.
yeah, Clay had shot a deer and what have you, and he went. They got snow and he had a grizzly track around, and he ended up having to pepper spray the goddamn thing. But you know, leave well enough alone. What the fuck, you know? I thought, you know, no thanks, you know. But made for a hell of footage.
Yeah, right. That was some good footage from that season, that's for sure. So
yeah,
you did a bunch of hunting when you were there at Reindeer Lake, but fishing was such a big part of ended up being a big part of your strategy as well. I'm curious, you made a whole bunch of amazing looking lures, which had like great success. Did you think that did you have a plan? Had you practiced making some lures before going out there, or was that just all kind of in the moment?
Yeah, I practiced making some lures. I don't know if you noticed that great big colorful sweater that I wore there that had, well, that was a purpose. There was a reason. And you were allowed to take a scarf or a shawl that was, what was it, 2 feet wide by 42 inches long. My wife made one. It had over $200 worth of wool in it. And it had pinks and yellows and greens and blues and all the rest of it. And those were all for me for lures and what have you. And when I was sitting on the shore there back at base camp, Mikey Helton, Mikey's one of those guys that he, just like you and I are talking here now, he'd have a fucking pocket knife out and a chunk of wood and he'd be whittling. That's Mikey. He can't keep his idle hands. And I've got it somewhere here. I'd have to go find it, but he whittled me out this lure very similar to the Gold Hellfire and the Gold Fury and the whole line of the Reindeer Lake Gold series. And he painted a pair of eyeballs on it with some blueberries. He got it, and he'd taken the blueberries and mashed them in to make the eyeballs and what have you. No hooks or nothing on it, but you know, he had the beak carved and what have you. And I said, "Here you go, brother." He said, "Hey, I'm going to use some." Yeah, use something because it was and that was my inspiration for making the first Gold Hellfire was Mikey's little design, and that was one of the things, you know, that I wrap mine with a lot of snare wire and stuff because if you notice, Alan and I, we had a lot of success with our fishing, and we would wait. We'd throw those lures out, or he was hand line, I'd had my rod, and would make them and wait so they would sink down, and then we'd be able to get down to the depths where the lake trout were. You know, even though there was fish rising everywhere and what have you, they were the whitefish and the grayling and stuff like that that weren't going to be hitting those big lures. We needed to get down where the pike and the lake trout were, and I don't think anybody got a walleye on the show, which is kind of surprising, but
Yeah.
you know, and same with the gill nets. You know, I targeted big fish. I moved my gill nets 9 times. Couple times I walked a long fucking ways to go to, and you know, but it was worth it. And you know, it was shame growing up fishing. My brother being a tournament fisherman, my dad always, you know, pay attention to the shoreline. Look for what, and I, you know, the one where I got the first big pike. I come around and come around this shallow bay, and there's a bunch of little minnows in around and all on the shore and the shallows and what have you. And when I hit the point where it was, I go, that's where the fish are going to come. And I ended up taking 2 big pike off that point, just knowing that this is where they're going to come in and ambush these little minnows and shit. And just, you know, and just lessons like that, learning growing up. You know, and Alan, of course, the same thing. Alan's a wicked fisherman. Him and I, you know, we went fly fishing down in Wyoming there with Kate and Jody Rose and Ann and myself and Luke and Taz. The seven. The only ones that didn't make it were Mikey and Lee and Melanie. We had a reunion down in Wyoming there. Went up into the mountains, fly fishing and camping and shit, and just had a blast. We could all just be friends and talk, and it was the only time where we could all kind of collectively sit around a campfire and talk about our experiences on Alone together, and it was just what an amazing experience. And doing it in Wyoming in the mountains with what an incredible place.
Oh, amazing. Did you guys have any common threads within your experience? Was there anything that you were like, oh, I'm glad that other people felt like this?
Oh yeah, lots of them, and you know, that's it. Like I said, there's so many emotions, and how you handle it. Like you're allowed to take one picture, 4x7 or 5x7, whatever the hell it is. It can't be a collage picture. It has to be of, you know, your family or whatever. It can't be anything pornographic or anything like that. And I never took one. And when people ask me, like, why didn't you take one? I said, I know I'm going to miss my family. Why do I want to torture myself and torment myself by looking at their faces every night going, God, I miss you, and driving my torment even worse, you know?
Yeah.
So I just opted not to take one, and solely for that reason.
I think there's a difficult choice, but a sound one, which makes complete sense, right? Like,
right.
Yeah, I can imagine it requires strength just to do that in the first place.
Yeah, and you know, like you watch how people react. Mikey took some grief. Hello, Lucy. Mikey took some grief for carving toys for his kids and what have you, and what, you know, a lot of people on the internet. People didn't realize that getting later, Mikey was out there 55 days. A big prick, never seen snow in his life. He come from Rome, Georgia. You know, he might have seen a snowflake here and there, but he had never seen snow. And he'd never seen cold like that, I promise you. And that big prick toughed her out. He lost over 90 pounds out there. And
Wow.
it would get dark at like 6 o'clock in the evening. You know, it wouldn't get, we were down to like 10, 11 hours of daylight a day, right?
Mm.
So by the time you did everything that you had to do, you still had to lay there, you know, with nothing to do for hours. So carving something, you know, is a way to occupy your brain, and just the way you know, and
Yeah.
people that have that mindset that just they don't see the qualities in something somebody's doing like Mikey. They'd rather criticize them, and that where they have no understanding.
Yes.
I read those comments and went, totally ignorant, you know. And it's the same like, oh, he only talks about his one son. Well, no, he didn't. He talked about them all, but like out of that 700 hours that I had, the 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 editors put what they want, and it was part of a story was to have that son who has difficulties and what have you, who's doing so much better now. You know, the show Luke and that's starting that GoFundMe for him and what have you. He raised more money than he would have made on the show by winning. You know,
Wow.
because it's totally tax free. And he was able to get. I actually had a conversation a couple weeks ago with Nikolai on the phone. First one I've ever had. No, I say a conversation. He was able to say, "Hi, Wyatt. How are you, Wyatt? Thank you, Wyatt." He could hardly say anything when Mike and I and the rest of the crew went out for our experience on Alone, and to see the improvement
Progress.
and everything. So anybody who donated to Mikey Helton and Nikolai and Hazel and the Helton family, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. And it did make a huge, huge difference. And it has raised a lot of awareness for autism for everyone else as well. And truly, I thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Yeah, that's amazing to hear that that's had such a positive impact, man. I wanted to ask you about your injury. I mean, I'm sure you've talked about this a lot,
Yeah.
but
So
what was the moment, like the moment when it happened? Can you remember? I'm asking this because usually when something important happens like that, your memory goes into like overdrive, remembering every detail. I wonder, can you remember what your emotional, like immediately what you were feeling or what you thought at the moment?
just like the title of my book, there was a lot of bleeping going on. You know, uh, yeah. Uh, so when I was doing my shelter or cutting firewood or anything else, I would try and limb the trees as high up as I could while they were standing rather than having to bend over, you know. So I just take my axe or hatchet, whatever, and I just limb all the way down. And everything's black spruce, and you know, there's Labrador tea and everything. And I wasn't paying attention. It was my own damn fault, just like any other mistake you made out there. It was your own damn fault, no one else to blame. And kind of like leaving fish in a live well, you know. Um, and when I come down, there was another black spruce that was about a 4-inch diameter, and it had snapped off in the wind. God knows how long ago. It was dry as hell, and it had all these shards sticking up on it, and I didn't see it. And when I come down with my axe taking these limbs off, I drove 2 of them right in here, one there and one there. And it stung. I drove them right in, and the 2 pieces I pulled out were both about 3/4 of an inch long.
Oof.
And I thought I had it all. I look in and I'm clearing, and okay, and I can see, and it's dirty old wood that's been there, had every bug crawl on it, bird shit on it, and everything else. And I start cleaning it up, and the throb in it, I knew I drove in there deep, and all right, so not really too worried about it, but it started infecting, and I'll just keep cleaning it and cleaning it and cleaning it every day, and I knew it looked bad enough within the first 24 hours that I didn't want to tell anybody about it. And so I just kept looking after it. And at one point, it was, you know, that big round type thing on my forearm. Like it covered this whole area here, and it'd be
Well, that's
sticking
what,
out,
like
you know.
that's like 5 inches across, maybe something like that, like a
Oh
big
yeah,
bulge.
yeah, and had a, you know, it was sticking an inch out, and I could squeeze it, and it would shoot. I could hit you 6 feet away. I could just paint your face. It was,
Oh,
and it. I noticed it getting better, and day 10, day 10, they come out, and I hadn't filmed any of it. I cleaned it, and I said, okay, well, they asked me about it anyways, and I was like, oh, fuck, all right. And I figured it was clean enough now, and it had gone down enough, you know, it was still swollen pretty good, but not, it was obviously getting better.
yes.
And they look at it, next day they're back out with the doctor, fucking squeezing the shit out of it. How you been cleaning it? Friggin' okay. Well, we're gonna come back, but we think. And then they gave me shit because the production crew was like, if you had to leave for this, there's no story. It's all about the story. So, you
Yes.
know, and you know, it was the wrong thing for me to do. I get it. And so I did my little apology thing there. And it was day 14. I cleaned it and I was squeezing it, and then all of a sudden that second piece, and there was only 2 holes. I that and it had to be the other half of one of those pieces. So that means that my first impale was an inch and a half into my arm, and the second piece I pulled out was 3/4 of an inch long, and at the back it was 3/16. The thing about my Leatherman there, it had the little measuring thing on the handle of it, so I was able to get exact measurements. And yeah, no doubt it hurt for a while. And you know, my dad, he
Did
goes,
you?
"You know how many calories you burned during that?" You know, and I said, "Yep."
Oh, he
And
knew.
it's part of the game. You know, I'll never use it as an excuse or anything like that, because if it wasn't for my fucking mistake, I never would have had to deal with it. And that's all part of the game. There's been people that have left for hitting themselves with an axe, cutting themselves with a knife, burning their shelter. That's part of the
It
game.
happens.
So it's
Yeah,
not an
yeah.
excuse.
If you're saying that you were treating it and you were kind of getting the pus out of this injury, were you using any kind of natural remedies that you knew of, or was
Oh yeah,
there?
like
I mean, or
no,
was
I
there a
would take
medikit or something?
no. Well, so they gave you a medikit that had, I think, 4 Band-Aids, 4 antiseptic wipes. It was very basic. It was a small little. So yeah, so I used the antiseptic wipes the first day. They
Yeah,
were gone. So I was taking a mix of Labrador tea and black spruce needles and resin, mixing them all together, and I was cutting so much black spruce for firewood, for my poles, for my shelter, for my everything I was using, firewood, everything. Um, that everywhere I cut live trees, they were just oozing the sap out, right? And that was the
yeah,
best fresh. That was the best. So I would take that warm water mixture. I'd boil it, the sap and the Labrador tea and the needles. I boil that, and then I just basically cup it, and I'd set my arm in that, and then I grab another cup, and I'd set my arm in that, and let it just soak as long as I could, you know, because I didn't really have a pot that I could, you know, and then I'd wash it and wash it and wash it till it was all gone. I'd use the whole pot, and as soon as it was gone, I would just go over and I just lather that fresh resin that was coming out of the black spruce stumps that I'd cut, and just lather it with that, and then wrap it, and it, you know, that's what all resins, saps are, is to heal a wound on a tree. It's a natural antiseptic. Um, One thing I learned a long time ago when I started growing some mushrooms was, you know, you want to use a fresh oak or a fresh maple hardwood for your putting your plugs in for oyster mushrooms or shiitakes or what have you. Well, so I go out and I cut a couple oaks down. I got them there in nice sizes. I drill and spent a friggin' all day drilling and pounding plugs in and sealing them with wax and what have you. wondering why the fuck they're not growing. And then I found out afterwards that it's a natural antibiotic in the oak that's produced for 30 days after you cut them down. It's like a natural antifungal for when they get wounds. They don't put out a resin the same as a coniferous tree and what have you. But that's what it is a natural antifungal in the oak that it killed all my mushroom spores.
Interesting. Okay, so you got
Yeah.
to wait until that's like more dead. That it's like
You got to
it's
wait
gone
30
through
plus days after you
decomposition.
cut the tree. Yeah.
Interesting.
Hard lesson to learn.
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure. I'm assuming a big part of Alone as well. I mean, especially going through that kind of, it's a physical ordeal, but the mental ordeal of having an injury and kind of thinking, oh, is this going to take me out of this competition that I've already put so much energy and passion into? Mental toughness, like mental grit, it seems to be, I mean, it's maybe an obvious thing to say as well, but like such an important part of Alone in terms of skills versus mental grit, mental toughness. Do you think that you learned more about yourself and your own ability to suffer, or was that something I mean, you clearly had a lot of experiences
Definitely.
from your stories today.
Well, I've had, it wasn't, it was a different kind of mental suffering for me.
Yeah.
I didn't complain about my wounds. I didn't complain about uh, really anything. I have my little outbreak and go, have a bleep session, when I'd lose a lure and that was part of everything. Through my healing process, I learned how much damage I did to myself by dwelling on negatives. And that was all part of my lesson out there. I was learning that. That was part of the gift of my lesson, was to learn about how I manifested my own negatives in my life. And I was learning not to do that anymore. And it happens. Let's carry on. Let's get up and go. And I really focused on that. Same with losing the fish and all the rest of it. And it's funny how they were all parts of the lessons, like losing the fish, like stabbing myself in the arm, things like that. They were my mistakes. There was no blame. There was no nothing. And it really allowed me to focus on how many of those times in my life where really I was to blame, and I was at fault, and I chose to blame something else or a situation or whatever, and never really took accountability myself. And like I say, every day was kind of a lesson out there and a gift. It's one thing I go on a lot about my book is the different gifts and the different realizations and understandings and acceptances of things. And don't ever get me wrong that I didn't miss my family and I didn't have the same mental type struggles as everyone else out there. I just dealt with it differently. Alan was Alan was very much the same, and anybody who thinks that it's easy out there is a fool. There's nothing easy about it. Day 5, I'm a guy who eats 3 square meals a day. When I had that first pike there and I gilled that, and then it was all over the internet, me doing my happy dance, and that was fucking true emotion, man. I hadn't eaten I was on day 5. I'm a guy who eats 3 square meals a day. I don't go without food. And holy fuck, now I'm on day 5. I'm a big man. I like to eat. Those were true emotions. Like, yeah, fucking who?
Definitely. So I guess you said acceptance was a big thing that you learned, a big lesson you learned. I'm wondering then, at the point at which you went through your whole time at Alone, had you got to the point of acceptance, then you realized that your body was telling you we're going to need to get out of there.
Yep.
What was your kind of emotional process then?
So the final day I was there, before that, I don't know if you watched where I pulled my toenail off the one night.
Yeah.
They didn't show after that. They kind of left it at that, but I could have pulled every toenail off both feet. They were just hanging by threads. My urine was as yellow or as orange. And it was like my organs were starting to shut down on me. I hadn't felt my feet in weeks. Uh, there were, I didn't sleep the last 4 nights I was there. I had 12 rocks about that big, and I would put them in my fire, and I'd take 6 out, and I put 2 at my feet in my sleeping bag, and 2 at my midsection, and 2 under my arms. And for weeks, that was great. All the comfort. And every 2 hours, I'd have to get up and restoke my fire because we're burning all soft wood, right? So I'd restoke my fire, and I'd take the 6 out of the fire, and I put them in my sleeping bag, and I'd take the 6 that were in my sleeping bag, and I put them in the fire, and I just rotate those 12 stones all night. Last 4 nights, I laid there rolling them all over my body because they wouldn't radiate through my body anymore because I was dehydrating and what have you. I was drinking 2 gallons of water a day, but I had no sodium or no way of retaining the water. And with that heat not radiating, I laid there freezing. Like, I mean, I was fucking freezing. Couldn't sleep. And the way they speed things up in the edit and what have you, the last day, I go out in the film. They show me watching the sun coming up. And Wyatt Black, actually, no relation to me, but she did me a beautiful painting of my shelter and me kind of stand there looking, reflecting on my whole experience of that. And she captured it absolutely beautiful. Anybody who even knows me, even though you can't see my face, knows it's me just by the posture and the way she captured my stature and what have you. Thank you, Shade. And I sat there and I looked and I really thought, and I know me. And after that experience, I knew me a lot better. And I knew I had to be sure with it. And I had 3 big pieces of fish for breakfast that morning. I shut the camera off and I went for a walk. And I just reflected. And I come back to camp and on my little walk, you can get warm one more time, right? Just get warm one more time. And you'll see when I tapped, I had a great big bonfire. And it would be about a 5-foot circle at the base. And I burnt every fucking stick of wood I had around my shelter, around that I'd cut. And I was almost crawling in that fire just to try and get warm one more time. And I couldn't.
Wow.
It was about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Come get me, guys. Time to go home. And I don't regret it. I was done. And I did the best I could. It's all the thoughts that, all my friends and everything going through it and things like that. They, that fucker's not going home until they'll have to carry him out of there and all the rest of it. 10 years ago, they would have been right because it would have been that ego that would have kept me there to the point where I would have hurt myself and I would have went beyond my means. But the realization and the lack, way I spoke once of the feeling the wind blowing the dirt off me. That ego was part of that dirt. So, yeah. It the whole experience made that moment possible, really, and it was a blessing.
So how long was the recovery process? Because I've learned from a few previous interviews with Alone participants that they keep you for a little bit.
There. I was in recovery for 13 days. 13 days. I spent 11 with Alan, the winner, Alan Tenja.
Yes.
And I suffered from what they call edema. So because I dehydrated, my body's like, we're not going through that again. And when I started getting sodium and stuff in my body again, I started developing pockets of water on my legs and on my stomach. And it's just like, we're not going to run out of water again. So they had to cut me way back, and it was a slow transition. Um, the refeeding program is, there's a reason for it, and they take such exceptional care. They're wonderful. The staff was incredible. The food was incredible, just not enough of it. Uh, well, the first thing they gave me was a thing of bone broth and 5 dried apricots and 10 almonds, and I'm like, fuck, I've been starving for 64 days, and this way you're giving me a fucking, I won't even fill a squirrel. Oh, come on, what's wrong with you people? Then, you know, every day, and like people would get angry. There's, and I knew the process. I read all the literature, and there was more emotion back at the camp after we were done. It's quite overwhelming. They talked about it previous, and you don't realize the overwhelming flood of emotions and the heightened senses. Like when you've been out there and you haven't heard any noise other than nature, you haven't had any smells other than nature, you haven't had anything other than nature. And even though it was in a quiet, relaxed setting of Arctic lodges, it was chaotic. It was busy. It was, and no longer my routine. And it was a very overwhelming stay for that time period.
Did you get to spend time with Alan and kind of share that experience? Share kind
Alan
of what
and
you
I
were both going through?
We basically became brothers in that 11 days. We talked about it a lot. There's not many people that you can share that experience with that truly understand on the level that you do. Alan, he's a great man, period. You'll never hear a bad word out of my mouth about that man. He's an absolute beauty. And I talk about it when I say the better man won. I mean that. And, it's one of those things. If that had been me walking up to the gill net, having a duck in it, the camera would have went off, and that duck would have been in my fucking belly. That's the honest truth. I know that the man today, Wyatt today, wouldn't. That was one of the things Alan taught me, was to be a better person. And truly, that is who Alan Tenta is. And same with the marten that was in his snare. The camera would have went off and it would have went into my pot. I have no trouble saying that because it's the truth. And that is the integrity of that man. And I'm proud to know him.
Did you, upon tapping and learning that you were second, was there a period in that recovery time that you struggled with that mentally? Or were you like completely at peace with it?
I was completely at peace with it. I've never, even to this day, I still haven't regretted it. I was done. And I know I wouldn't have left if I wasn't. I didn't stay 64 days out there. Just throw my arms and go, I'm fucking done. I was done. And that's all, and when the tank's empty, the tank's empty. I still had fish left. I still had firewood left. But I was done. And that's just, and right up to that moment, I didn't whine and I didn't cry and I didn't, I just went through every day like I did the first day and the second day and the third day until there was no more days left.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, like I said, when you've given the best you can give, what can anyone else ask? What more can you ask of yourself?
Yep.
You know,
You can only be proud.
it's not like it was, yeah, it, it wasn't like it was a survival, like I was in a war or where I had no choice to come home in pieces just to survive.
Yes.
And I was to the point where it was going to be pieces. You know, the recovery. You know, I know a lot of people that have stayed out a lot less time than I did, and maybe not even in such bad conditions that had a lot harder recovery than I did. You know, that's just, and my body was telling me it's time to go home.
Yeah. You gotta, yeah. It sounds like when you know, you know. So what was it like then? You'd done your recovery, you got to spend that time with Alan, and then you made your way home. Was that quite an adjustment getting back?
Yeah, I stayed at home for a long time. I didn't really venture out. Um,
Yeah.
you know, the whole world thought at that time that I'd quit drinking. You know, it was and you know, cause talking all about my alcoholism and what have you, and um, I had made it up in my mind that I wasn't gonna ever go back to drinking the way I used to, and what have you. And in all fairness, Alan and I, we went out. We'd been, we spent 11 days, or I'd been 11 days. Alan had been 9 at the camp at Arctic Lodges, and then they flew us into Saskatoon. And Alan and I went out. We had pizza and wings and a cold fucking beer. And I'll tell you, I've drank a lot of beer in my life. I don't know if I've ever drank a beer that tasted so goddamn good ever in my life. And we only had one or two. And, you know, the next night, we ended up having to stay an extra night because the weather was so bad we couldn't fly home. So Alan and I went to an all-you-can-eat buffet. And right beside this all-you-can-eat buffet was a cannabis dispensary. And I went, ha ha! Oh boy. And, you know, I'm a guy who smokes weed every day. And I went in there and okay, give me, yeah, all right. And I stood outside that friggin' all-you-can-eat buffet there and I smoked a joint and holy Jesus was I high, like Jack the Bear. I just, oh boy. And I got the lightest, most relaxed, calm, mellow weed that they had, like, because I knew that, you know, I haven't had a joint in 80 days, 90 days, because we, you know, we were at base camp, about 14 days before we went out, before our launch date and what have you. So, and then I was also I was out there 64 days, 50, 74, yeah, really close to 90 days without having a joint. And it was holy jumpings. And did I ever destroy that friggin' buffet? I'll tell you. They didn't make any money on me that night.
uh, that's hilarious. Well,
What I was
Wyatt,
going to say, you know, like right now I'm not drinking, you know, and I did notice, you know, I thought I'd be able to handle it and, you know, have one here and there and what have you, and started slipping back into my old ways. And there was, you know, we just quit and time to leave it alone. And,
yeah,
you know, like I said, I'll always be an alcoholic, even if I'm not drinking. Um, you know, uh, too many years of it that made it too big a problem for me to ever say that it's anything different. So, as
Yeah.
much as I'd love to have
I
one
think
and what have you,
the thing sounds like you've got the acceptance there, though, which I think is, yeah, it's like,
yeah,
that's a
and the
powerful thing in
understanding.
itself, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I have the understanding, and it's one of those things that you know, uh, it's just far better I leave it alone.
Yeah.
I've got a
I've got,
I got a really nice 25-year-old bottle of Chivas Regal that I was given by one of my clients. That maybe when one of my boys has a grandson or granddaughter, I'll open it then and have a shot with them. But till then, I think we're good.
yeah, sounds like a good plan. I've got one last question for you, Wyatt, if that's
Fire
okay.
away.
Now that you had this experience and it changed your perspective on your life so much, do you ever feel the need to go and do another big, long, extended isolation style trip again?
I'm dying to. I'm absolutely dying to because there's no baggage. Uh, I'll get to truly experience it for the love of the love of the outdoors and the passion I have for it without the baggage.
Yeah.
The healing's been done. I'm good. I truly am. I feel uh, truly at peace. And so to have that opportunity to go out there and just embrace every moment and enjoy every moment and appreciate it on a different level, you know, because I did truly appreciate it. I did love it out there, and I did capture the beauty. And it was one of the things I said on film a couple times, that I hope this camera is capturing what I see through these eyes so you can see it. And there were so many moments of that. Um, but a lot of those things they didn't even show. Like I said, it's about the show, and you know,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. It's a
I
little,
captured it.
I can imagine it's frustrating at times, right? You're going to have an image in your mind painted of all the different things you've experienced and how could they possibly portray that fully. But
Yeah, but
I guess that's
in
part of the
all fairness,
process.
I was very happy with the way they portrayed me. I really was.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, uh, I understand that there was 9 other participants that they had to fill their time too, and what have you, and there's just only so much time. Uh, so, uh, but in all fairness, they let the world kind of know who Wyatt Black is, uh, and we're able to let the world see that uh, a lot of what my journey was,
Yeah.
and my healing process, and just how Mother Nature uh, can do that for you. And I said, when we talk about the mushrooms and we talk about the fish and the grouse and the ducks and the bears and the berries and everything else, uh, Mother Nature, she is Mother Nature for a reason, and she can heal the heart and the mind as much as she can fuel our bodies, and uh, give us the warmth of firewood and on and on. Um, she's truly the biggest blessing we have, and we need to pay more attention to what we do to her and how we disrespect her, and open her arms a little bit more up and embrace her more.
Amen to that. Yeah. Amen to that, Wyatt. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. It was really amazing to talk to you and here's so many amazing stories, dude. I can't wait
It's a
for everyone
pleasure,
to hear
Robin,
these.
and thank you so much for having me here. It's been a fun chat, and I truly appreciate it.
Good luck with the launch of the book. This is a moment then. How can people find your book? How can people follow you on social media and all those fun things? Do you want to send people anywhere?
Wyatt Black 1971, wyattblack.com or codebreakers.com if you want to pre-order a book. If you follow me on Instagram or Facebook, what have you, Facebook is just Wyatt Black. Send me a message and or an invite, and I'll gladly accept a friendship. And on Instagram, Wyatt Black 1971, and I'll be posting where I'm going to do all kinds of book signings and what have you. And I'll be more than happy to autograph a copy. Or if you ever see me out in the woods or that wandering aimlessly, if you got a Sharpie, I'll sign it for you. So
amazing. Well, I'll put all those links down in the show notes as well for people if they want to find an easy way to just click those through. Then they'll be right there. Wyatt, I hope you managed to get out on your adventure at some point soon. But
it's
thank
coming.
you again.
It's coming.
Yeah. All right.
It's
Thanks,
coming.
Chad.
No doubt in my mind.
Right. That's another episode done and dusted. A huge thank you again to Wyatt for sharing his time and his stories with us today. Be sure to go and check out his book. Go to wyattblack.com. Also check out Codebreaker, the publisher who's putting that book out, and you'll be able to find out all the information. I'm going to put links in all the show notes so you can check it out there too. Thanks again to everyone who listened to this episode and continues coming back and sharing the word and growing this podcast more and more. It's an amazing thing to see happening. If you do get a chance and you know someone who would probably enjoy this kind of content, then by all means, sling it their way. If you are new and you're still here, by all means, hit that follow or subscribe button. Oh, wow. I'm making myself cringe with that expression. I sound like a YouTuber. No offense to YouTubers. Do all the things that people do when they like a podcast. That would be appreciated. Thank you. I've just landed in a nice flush of mushrooms. I've got chanterelles everywhere. I'm going to turn this around for a second. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. There's black chanterelles right here. Just like all over the place. They're up the hill here. I'm really in a honey spot now, so very exciting news. I think I'm going to say goodbye for this episode, but thanks for listening, and until next time.
Welcome to the Wild Dispatch.